I want you to think about the last time you got genuinely angry online. Maybe it was a tweet. Someone said something so stupid, so infuriating that you felt your blood pressure tick up. You read the replies, thousands of people agreeing with them. You felt outnumbered, isolated, like the world had collectively lost its mind. Or maybe it was the opposite, a wholesome Reddit thread, a heartwarming story that got 80,000 upvotes, strangers being kind to strangers. And for a second, you thought, okay, maybe people aren't so bad after all. Either way, you felt something real. Here's the question I've been sitting with for months. What if neither of those moments were real? What if the angry tweet was posted by a script? What if the 80,000 upvotes were purchased? What if the thousands of people agreeing were bots? Not even sophisticated AI, just hollow accounts running on autopilot, deployed by a company you've never heard of, paid for by someone with a very specific agenda? What if you logged on today, scrolled for an hour, argued with strangers, felt informed, felt outraged, felt connected, and you were the only real person in the room? That is the dead internet theory. And the uncomfortable truth is, it's not really a theory anymore. Let's start at the beginning, because this idea has an origin story. The dead internet theory first surfaced in its coherent form around 2020 in a post on a forum called Agora Road's Macintosh Cafe, which, yes, sounds like a place where conspiracy theories are served with artisanal coffee, but bear with me. The original post described something the author had been feeling for years, that the internet had changed, not just gotten worse in the normal culture war kind of way, changed in a deeper, more structural way, that the texture of online interaction had shifted, that content felt recycled, that viral moments felt manufactured, that comment sections felt hollow. The thesis, in its rawest form, was this: the majority of activity on the internet is no longer generated by humans. Now, when this circulated, most mainstream commentators laughed it off. Classic paranoid doomer stuff. Touch grass, log off, the usual. But then something inconvenient happened. The evidence started showing up. Not in conspiracy forums, in academic papers, in congressional testimony, in internal documents from the platforms themselves. In 2017, Twitter's own filings estimated that between 9% and 15% of its accounts were automated bots. Independent researchers at Carnegie Mellon University put the actual number closer to 45% during certain news cycles. During the 2016 US election, a study from Oxford University's Computational Propaganda Project found that bots were responsible for spreading a significant portion of political content. Not a small, marginal slice of the conversation, but a structural share of what people saw. Meta has admitted to removing billions, with a B, fake accounts every single quarter. Not per year, per quarter. Let that land for a second. Billions. Every 3 months. And those are just the ones they caught. So the question was never really, are there bots? The question, the deeper, darker question is, who's running them, what do they want, and how sophisticated has it gotten? To understand how this works at scale, we need to talk about something called a click farm. The basic version you've probably heard of: warehouses, usually in Southeast Asia or Eastern Europe, filled with banks of phones and laptops, each running dozens of fake accounts, each account generating engagement, likes, follows, views, shares, on demand. You pay, they deliver, your video gets 1 lakh views, your tweet gets 10,000 likes, your product gets 100-star, 5-star reviews. That's the retail version. That's what's sold to influencers and small businesses who want to look bigger than they are. But that is the absolute bottom of the food chain. Above that sits something far more sophisticated, far more expensive, and far more dangerous. What researchers have started calling sentiment manipulation agencies. These are not warehouses of phones. These are actual companies, with offices, with clients, with sales teams that sell something more valuable than fake followers. They sell fake consensus. Here's how the pitch works. A client comes to them, a political campaign, a corporation managing a PR crisis, a government agency, a billionaire who just got caught doing something embarrassing. The client has a problem. Public opinion is moving against them. The conversation online is bad. The agency doesn't try to delete the bad conversation. You can't do that. What they do instead is drown it. They deploy networks of coordinated accounts. Not obviously fake, not egg avatars with 0 posts, but aged accounts, with histories, with followers, with years of normal-looking activity, and they flood the relevant hashtags, subreddits, comment sections, and reply threads with content designed to do one specific thing: Change the subject, not argue, not defend, just shift the Overton window of the conversation. Suddenly, the timeline is filled with posts about something else. The ratio inverts. The angry voices get buried under an avalanche of noise, and the average person scrolling through thinks, I guess people have moved on. And because humans are social creatures, because we calibrate our sense of what's normal and acceptable based on what we perceive others thinking, they move on too. This is called astroturfing at the macro scale, and it has been documented in the United States, the United Kingdom, Brazil, India, China, Russia, Israel, and, according to researchers at Stanford's Internet Observatory, dozens of other countries running state-sponsored information operations simultaneously. This isn't theory. The Stanford Internet Observatory has published report after report. The Oxford Internet Institute has a whole project dedicated to tracking computational propaganda. Journalists at outlets like ProPublica and The Guardian have published the receipts. There are literal companies with LinkedIn pages that describe their services in polished corporate language. Narrative management, conversation architecture, digital reputation solutions. They're selling the manipulation of your reality, and business, apparently, is booming. Now, here's where it gets personal, because we've been talking about this like it's something that happens to other people, to politicians, to celebrities, to brands, but the target isn't them. The target is you. Let me explain the mechanic, because once you see it, you cannot unsee it. The engagement model of every major social platform is built on one fuel: emotional activation. Specifically, negative emotional activation. Anger, outrage, anxiety, fear, tribal indignation. These emotions generate more clicks, more replies, more time on site than any positive emotion. The algorithm doesn't prefer this because it's evil. It prefers it because it works. Angry people click. Scared people scroll. Outraged people share. Now, layer on top of that the bot networks. A sentiment manipulation campaign doesn't just flood the timeline with noise. The sophisticated ones are designed to trigger you specifically. They identify what your particular demographic, your particular political lean, your particular cultural sensibility finds most infuriating, and they serve it. The tweet that made you furious? It may have been posted by a bot. The replies that made it look like everyone agreed with the furious take? More bots. The counter argument that seemed so stupid it made you want to respond? Potentially written by a script designed to invite engagement because your real, human reply boosts the post's algorithmic visibility. You became the content. Your outrage was the point. And here's the specific tactic that researchers have documented and given a name to: social proof manipulation. Human beings are deeply wired to care about consensus. We are tribal. We calibrate our behavior, our beliefs, even our perception of reality based on what we think the people around us think. It's not weakness. It's evolved social intelligence. But it's exploitable. If you can manufacture the appearance of consensus, if you can make it look like the majority of people online believe X, you will move real humans toward believing X. Not all of them, not immediately. But over time, at scale, with repetition, the research is unambiguous. It works. And the most insidious version of this, the one that I think deserves a lot more attention, is the deliberate manufacturing of false polarization. Here's the trick. You don't just amplify one side. You amplify both sides, but you make each side look more extreme than it actually is. You fill conservative timelines with the most unhinged progressive takes. You fill progressive timelines with the most deranged conservative takes. Both sides come away convinced that the other side is irredeemably, cartoonishly evil. Neither side is seeing the actual other side. They're seeing a curated performance of the other side, authored largely by bots and amplified by algorithms. The result? Real humans processing this manufactured reality become genuinely more polarized. The fake extremism creates real extremism in response. You were socially engineered into thinking everyone disagrees with you, and that feeling kept you angry. And that anger kept you clicking. And somewhere, someone got paid. Everything I've described so far? The click farms, the sentiment agencies, the coordinated, inauthentic behavior, that was the old version of this problem. Then large language models went mainstream, and the game changed entirely. Pre-2020, bot content had a ceiling, the fake accounts could share links, they could post templated text, they could like and retweet, but if you actually talked to them, the mask fell off pretty quickly. Repetitive phrases, weird grammar, Responses that didn't quite track with what you said. A reasonably attentive person could smell a bot. That is no longer reliably true. With modern AI, you can generate unlimited, unique, contextually appropriate, emotionally resonant text at essentially zero cost per post. The same operation that used to require a warehouse of human workers can now be run by a handful of engineers and a modest API budget. The accounts can now hold conversations. They can respond to your specific argument with what appears to be a specific counter-argument. They can express what reads as genuine emotion. They can be funny. They can be wounded. They can say, okay, that's a fair point, and then pivot, which is something humans find uniquely disarming because we're not used to bots conceding things. Researchers have started documenting what they call AI agent swarms, networks of AI-powered accounts that coordinate with each other in real time, responding to breaking news events with pre-designed narrative frameworks within minutes of something happening. Think about what that means for your news consumption. A major story breaks. Before you've even read the original article, before you've had a chance to form an uninfluenced opinion, the reply section is already filled with thousands of responses pushing a specific interpretation of what just happened. The first thing you see shapes how you understand everything that follows. The agents got there first, and they were waiting. I want you to picture something. Imagine you're walking through a crowded city, thousands of people around you, arguments at street corners, celebrations in the square, people holding signs, people having conversations. You feel the energy of it. You feel the weight of public opinion pressing in from every direction. And then someone unzips the backdrop. And behind every face, every shouting protester, every cheering fan, every concerned citizen, there's no person. There's a circuit board, a floating algorithm wearing a human mask, eyes that light up based on inputs, mouths that open when a script triggers a response, and you're standing in the middle of it, the only warm body in a city of machines. That's what mounting evidence suggests the public internet increasingly looks like. Not entirely. There are real people on the internet, you're real, your friends are real, but the ambient noise, the trending topics, the viral posts, the comment avalanches, the outrage cycles, that ecosystem is increasingly automated, increasingly synthetic, increasingly manufactured, and the disturbing thing is, our brains weren't designed to operate in this environment. We evolved to read social signals in rooms of 50 to 150 people, the size of the communities our ancestors lived in. We are exquisitely sensitive to what the people around us think and feel, because in that context, social information was real. It was genuine data about your actual social environment. Now we're processing social signals from communities of millions, and our brains can't tell the difference between a real signal and a synthetic one. The outrage feels like real outrage. The consensus feels like real consensus. We are running Stone Age social hardware in a world of industrial-scale social manipulation, and nobody on the platforms has a strong financial incentive to fix it because the manipulation drives engagement, and engagement drives revenue. You are the product, the bots are the factory, and the anger is the output. I want to be careful here because there's a version of this conversation that slides into pure paranoia where everything is fake, nothing is real, trust no one. I don't want to go there because that's not actually useful. So let me be precise about what has been documented versus what is speculative, what is confirmed. The existence of large-scale, coordinated, inauthentic behavior on every major platform has been confirmed by the platforms themselves, by independent researchers, and by government investigations. This is not disputed. State-sponsored information operations from Russia's Internet Research Agency, from Iran, from China, from domestic political operators in multiple democracies have been documented in granular detail. The Stanford Internet Observatory, the Atlantic Council's Digital Forensics Research Lab, and Oxford University have all published extensive reports. You can read them. Commercial sentiment manipulation, companies selling astroturfing as a service, has been reported on by investigative journalists. Undercover sting operations have documented sales pitches. Some companies have faced legal consequences. The specific cognitive effects, increased polarization, decreased trust in institutions, distorted perception of public opinion, have been documented in peer-reviewed research. These are not claimed effects. They are measured ones. What is harder to quantify, exactly what percentage of any given conversation is synthetic, is genuinely difficult to measure because the operations that are designed to look authentic are, by definition, hard to detect. The 70% figure you sometimes see cited is contested. The honest answer is, we don't know precisely. We know it's significant, we know it's growing, and we know that the tools to do this at scale just got 100 times more powerful. What is speculative? The most extreme versions of the dead internet theory that virtually no organic content exists, that the platforms themselves are complicit in the deepest sense, that it's all one coordinated operation that remains in the realm of the unproven. It's worth being skeptical of the maximalist version while taking the documented version seriously. The documented version is alarming enough. All right, I've spent the last 15 minutes describing a system designed to make you feel paranoid, isolated, and manipulated. So let me give you something constructive, because the worst outcome of understanding this is learned helplessness. First, treat viral outrage like you treat processed food. Processed food is engineered to be maximally appealing in ways that aren't good for you. You don't have to swear off food, you just apply some critical awareness. Same principle. When something online triggers a strong emotional response, especially outrage, treat that as a signal to slow down, not speed up. Ask, who benefits from me being angry about this right now? Second, the ratio is a lie. The number of likes, the number of angry replies, the apparent consensus in a comment section, these are the most manipulated data points on the internet. They are the things that are cheapest and easiest to fake. Stop using them as social calibration. What most people think, as represented by platform metrics, is not reliable data. Third, primary sources still work. Bots can flood a comment section. They cannot fake a peer-reviewed paper. They cannot fake original documents. They cannot fake on-the-record interviews with named sources. When something matters, trace it back to the primary source. The further from the primary source, the more manipulable the content. Fourth, real communities are smaller. The dead internet problem is most acute at scale, trending topics, viral posts, platform-wide conversations. Smaller, interest-specific communities, not just online but offline, are harder to astroturf effectively. Your local neighborhood group, a genuine niche forum with real moderation, actual friends, the signal-to-noise ratio is better when the room is smaller and the faces are known. Fifth, you don't have to solve it, you just have to see it. The manipulation loses a significant amount of its power the moment you recognize it's happening. You cannot unsee the matrix once it's been shown to you. That doesn't mean you're immune, but awareness creates friction, and friction is enough to break a lot of automatic responses. Here's the thing that keeps me up about all of this. It's not the bots themselves. Bots are a technical problem, and technical problems can eventually be addressed. What keeps me up is the social infrastructure we've built around a communication system that can be, and increasingly is, gamed to manufacture a false version of human consensus. Because democracy, civil society, culture, all of it depends on something very simple: the ability of real people to know what other real people actually think. When that signal gets corrupted, when you genuinely cannot tell whether the opinion you're reading was written by a human being or by a script deployed by someone with an agenda, the whole feedback loop of a functioning society starts to break down. You can't have an honest conversation in a room full of actors who are pretending to be your neighbors. And the tragedy is that most of the real people navigating this environment have no idea it's happening. They're processing the manufactured outrage as real outrage. They're calibrating their sense of the world against a synthetic mirror. They're arguing with ghosts and coming away changed. The dead internet theory started as a paranoid thought on a fringe forum. The documented reality is stranger and more disturbing than the theory ever was. And the most important thing I can tell you, after all of this, is also the simplest. You are real. Your actual opinions, your genuine confusion, your real uncertainty about hard things, that is the rarest commodity on the modern internet. Don't let a machine tell you that everyone disagrees with you. Don't let an algorithm make you feel alone in a crowd. And don't mistake the noise for the signal. The signal is you.